Good evening, YouTube. Yours truly, Mike the LA Dons fan, coming at you with the LA Dons Football History Part 2. If you are new here, thank you. And anyone that's already subscribed, thank you as well. Hope everybody's having a good day, cutting toxic people out of their life, and thank God every day they're alive on this earth and walking tall. And if you can, before we start the video, please give this video a like. For the new ones that's here, give this video a like, and all my other videos a like. Please subscribe and leave a positive comment. So that's what I'm bringing to y'all. And now let's jump into the video. Los Angeles Dons, dating back to 1946 in the All-American Football Conference. The proud sons of California, aka the America's most colorful football team. It is the great coaches and players, from Dean Allen, Coach White, all the way to Manny Reyes. The players: Ted Burke, Ty Harmon, James Ford, all the way to Warwick Locker, Mike Jones, Derek Vance, Devon Means, Nathan Smith, Matt Malutu, all the way to Tyree Thompson, Seth Schultz, Jerome Simpson, and Rich Morales. It is hope in September and playoff in January. It's the Mega Bowls, the championships, the legacy. It's sunshine, palm trees, mountains, Hollywood, LA Coliseum, and the Rose Bowl. It's the rivalries with the 49ers, the Civil War, the original Battle of LA with the Rams, the Mega Bowl rivalry with the Shamrocks, and the NFC Coastal War with the Orlando Thunder. It is Dons football, the team that has originated in Los Angeles, and proud to be called the proud sons of California. Ladies and gentlemen, LA Dons football history. Finna start right now. The 1940s, the All-American Football Conference. In 1946, the Dons started their football journey in the All-American Football Conference under head coach Doug DeGroot, coming over from Stanford to lead the Dons to greatness. Their first year under DeGroot, Doug DeGroot, was 7-5-2, and their first win in franchise history was over the Brooklyn Dodgers, 20-14. And they had a pretty good run, but their biggest lopsided win of that season was against. But before we get to that, a big win against the Cleveland Browns in the middle of the season, 17-16, was shedding light of what Dons football was going to be in the future. I mean, yeah, the Dons were a talented team, really good talented team under Doug DeGroot, but they were just sort of missing some fundamentals, but they were a real good talented team. But the biggest win, that was the biggest win of the season against the eventual champion Cleveland Browns. But their most lopsided victory of the season was against the Buffalo Bisons in Week 13, beating them 62-14, and to finish the season 7-5-2. The next season, in 1947, the Dons still had some moments, but was still mediocre. But Doug DeGroot, in the middle of the 47 season, was fired, replaced by first Ted Skippy, and then other interim head coach Mel Hines. But the Dons finished 7-7. But they did manage to beat the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland, 13-10. And in 1948, they would hire new head coach Jim Phelan. Yeah, Jim Phelan, a pretty good coach and a pretty good hire, but same results. Even though the Dons Even though the Dons were getting hot late in the season, they faltered down the stretch, losing their last two games to the Browns and to the 49ers. Once again, finishing 7-7 in 1948 under new head man Jim Phelan. And then in 1949, they hit rock bottom. They finished 4-8 in their last year in the old AAFC conference, including their most worst loss in franchise history to the Cleveland Browns, 61-14. And after that, the All-American Football Conference passed out in existence, and the three teams, the Colts, Browns, and 49ers, would merge with the NFL, while the Dons no longer existed until in 2005, when Mike Jones, aka Mike the LA Dons fan, was at Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio, went to the library and discovered the Dons All-American Football Conference, and decided whenever he get a chance, he will revive the franchise in his fun segment starting in the 1950s. Like I said, y'all, I found out about the Dons in my freshman year at Central State, because this guy had this black jacket of the old school teams way before the Texans, Jaguars, Panthers, Buccaneers, the AFL. It was all the old school teams, and the Dons was on there. So he had it on his jacket. And so I went to the Paul Robeson Library and looked it up. And I said, wow, they really were a team. And I figured, let me try one day, play them on Madden, create them on Madden. And maybe if I start a YouTube, I could try to use them on my fun segment. And that's what happens when I started. Actually, my old channel, Mike the Dons fan, y'all. My old channel, Mike the Dons fan, that's my old channel. Check that out. My first video was about the All-American Football Conference of the LA Dons. That was my first video. Started in 2022, by the way. So now, we're going to jump into the 1950s. The 1950s. One of the greatest eras in Dons football history in Mike, the LA Dons fun segment. In 1951, In 1951, in Mike's fun segment in the NFL, the Dons were resurrected under head man Jeff Gold. And their first game in the NFL under Mike's fun segment was against the Iowa Kings on a primetime matchup in the LA Coliseum. It was a great game, great showing, and the LA Dons came out victorious over the Kings. But that's all as good as it got. Even though they won again in Washington, and then again against the Bears later on in the season, that's all the Dons could muster up was 3 wins. And the following season, it got even worse. They went 2-10, leading to Jeff Gold's firing and hiring one of the greatest coaches that would start the LA Dons winning championship tradition. After 1952, Bill Mace was the owner, and he was trying everything. He was trying everything, and he was trying to go after the usual suspects to take over this franchise. And one time, he thought about canceling the franchise again because he couldn't get a coach until a guy named Dean Allen, a man that worked under Paul Brown in Mike's Fun segment, took the job and decided to lead the Dons into greatness. Dean Allen was a great man, great coach. He was big on execution, big on discipline. He did not like he didn't tolerate guys that didn't work hard. He didn't tolerate guys that pushed themselves. He was always always a stickler for rules. Didn't want guys. He didn't want guys to stay up, especially on the road. Didn't want guys to stay up to a certain point, and he wanted everybody sharp. He wanted everybody on the same level. And just like that, Dean Allen took the job. And in his first game against their rivals, their inner city rival Rams, he would get his first win. And that game was great. I mean, it showcased what Don's football was going to be in the future. But his first year was not easy. They went 5-6-1 in 1953. They did have their first win in Iowa against the Kings. But like they said, they finished 5-6-1 in his first year. But his second year got a little better. And he was coach of the year in 1953 in his first year. Turning a once woeful franchise and trying to make them in contenders. 1954, they added their win total by 1 by going 6-6 in 1954. Highlighted with a win against their NorCal rivals, the San Francisco 49ers, 27-16, and another highlight win in their first trip into Pittsburgh, beating the Steelers 38-7, and beating the Rams again 27-14. And then in 1955, got even more better. Their first winning season in the NFL, and Mike the LA Don's Fan Fun segment, going 7-5 in their first winning season since 1946 in the All-American Football Conference. But in 1956, the Dons will improve their win total by 1, going 8-3-1 and winning the Western Conference with the highlight win over the Rams, Niners, beating the Steelers for the second time at home in the Coliseum, beating the 49ers 28-3, and beating the Lions 28-21, earning a trip to the NFL Championship game, where they will face the New York Football Giants. But in the NFL Championship game, the Dons will fall short to the Giants, who will win the championship. But that was just the beginning, and a prelude and a stepping stone for what was come into the next season in 1957. Yeah, that 56 NFL championship game lost to the Giants, their first ever championship game. That was disappointing. As disappointing as it was, they knew that they were a good team, and they knew that one day they will win a championship. But that day against the Giants were just a better team that day in Yankee Stadium. 1957 will be the keystone and the start of what will become Don's football in the future. I remember heading into the 1950. We remember going into the 1957 season. Guys were fired up. Well, not really fired up, but they were kind of disappointed coming into training camp, angry because we lost the 1956 championship to the Giants. But at the same time, I looked around, I'm like, man, we really got a good team. And I remember, never forget it, Dean Allen said, okay, he came into the meeting room and he says, you guys think you're good, huh? Well, guess what? You're not that good in my eyes. And we were shocked. So what he was trying to do was, he was trying to bring them back to reality and try to keep them on their toes to let them know, hey, that championship loss indicate that you guys need to work harder. You're not that good. But the first game of the season in Iowa, the players will show Coach Allen that he was wrong. In that first game against Iowa, against the Kings in Iowa, we beat them 37-0, and we just played a well of a game. And Ted Burt was just playing the best football of his life, and I think he ended up winning MVP that year, if I'm not mistaken. And just like that, they beat the Rams. They tied with the team that beat them in the NFL championship game, the Giants. And then they beat the Niners, Packers, Bears, until they went into Baltimore and lost a 3-point game to the Baltimore Colts. Yeah, that one was kind of a tough one. We let that one get away. That game, we know we should have won that one, but we knew we couldn't feel sorry for ourselves then, so we knew we had Detroit coming in to the Coliseum. And in that game in the Coliseum against the Lions, the Dons will put on a show, beating the Detroit Lions 37-20 and finishing the season 10-1-1. Their first 10-win season ever in franchise history. The best season in franchise history. Punching their ticket once again to the NFL championship game. This time against the Cleveland Browns. Against Dean Allen's former mentor, Paul Brown, and their rookie sensation fullback, Jim Brown. My fun segment, y'all. And in that championship game, the Dons will put on a performance for the ages. Ted Burt led the team, throwing 5 touchdowns, 399 yards, 19 of 24, as the Dons crushed the Cleveland Browns, their former All-American Football Conference foes, 56-10 to earn the franchise's first ever world championship. And that game right there against the Cleveland Browns kind of set the tone of what Don's football was going to be. And it kind of ignited not only the franchise, but the city of Los Angeles and the fans of Los Angeles who were Don's fans and not Rams fans. And it gave Don's fans in the city of Los Angeles and pretty much around the state of California that, hey, this is hope. There's hope that we can win a championship. And that's what we did in 1957, winning a championship. And boy, that was a big deal. Beating the Cleveland Browns, who won 3 titles in the 50s, and we got one on them. And boy, to win the franchise's first ever world championship, Dean Allen once again, Coach of the Year, unbelievable. Yeah, and Dean Allen once again was Coach of the Year, like in '53, but this one was big time. And Dean Allen, he was a tough coach. He was a tough coach, but when you won the game, he was all thrilled and happy. When we lost, he was not. But that day, that year, it was full of smiles, full of happy, and he was just happy for us, and we were happy for him. And Bill Mace, the original owner, this is why he purchased the franchise in Mike's Fun segment, is to bring Don's football to greatness by winning championships. And that day, against the Cleveland Browns, the first championship won by the Dons, the first championship won by the Dons in franchise history, was a stepping stone of what Don's football was going to be in the future. And Dean Allen was the keystone of Don's football, what it was going to be. 1958. 1958, the Dons once again won 10 games. They were 10-2. They beat the Colts. They beat the Colts to keep their NFL championship game hopes alive. But playing the Colts again at home in the Western Conference title game to face the Giants in the NFL championship, they fell 7 points short to the eventual world champion Colts, who will beat the Giants in the 1958 NFL championship game, known as one of the great championship games in NFL history. Yeah, that was a tough loss. That game was a tough loss. But we knew we couldn't hang our heads because we knew that, hey, 1959, we got to take it. And just like that, in 1959, they would get their chance. But first, in Cleveland, the first game was a tie. But the Dons finished the 59 season 8-3-1. Finished the season 8-3-1, and with some help of the Kings beating the Colts, they punched their ticket to the NFL championship game. But their opponent was the New York Football Giants, the team that beat them in the 1956 NFL championship game. Oh yeah, we were ready for that game, and I'll never forget. Dean Allen kind of changed some things a little bit before that game because I think he remembered 1956 of how the Giants played. And in the halftime, it was kind of, I think the Giants had like a 3-point lead or it was tied or whatever. And Dean Allen said, oh, hell with all this. We're going back to what we did all year and we're going to kick their ass. And just like that, the Dons went out and beat the Giants 37-24. To earn the franchise's second NFL World Championship. And Ted Burt was once again the MVP of that game. And the Dons earned their second NFL championship in franchise history. I mean, yeah, what Dean Allen did, coming over in 53 from the Cleveland Browns, learning under Paul Brown and how they did things. And he just made it into his own. And boy, it was just, man, it just revived the city. And now, and then I think after that game against the Giants, they kind of just took over the popularity of Los Angeles from the Rams in my fun segment because of the championships and how the team carried themselves and the marching band that the Dons have. And it's just the Coliseum. And boy, it was just fun to be a Dons fan under Dean Allen in those days. And I'm glad it was because he built a lot of great football teams. He built a lot of great football teams and they won a lot of big games. The 1960s. 1960s was kind of an okay time. 1960 they went 8-4, but did not reach the NFL championship game. But they reached the playoff bowl and they beat the Cleveland Browns in the Orange Bowl and the playoff bowl 39-24. In 1961, they went 7-6-1. But after the 61 season, tragedy struck. Legendary head coach Dean Allen passed away after a fatal car crash. Car crash in the Los Angeles highway. Yeah, that was so sad. That was so sad, to know that the coach that put Don's football on the map has tragically passed away in a car crash, and now we didn't know who to turn to, who was going to lead us, and that was just, man. It was sad. That was one of the saddest days ever, not only in Don's football history, but in LA history. One of the greatest coaches in Don's history, and probably in LA sports figure history, is gone. But he was a great man, great family man. Was he a tough coach? Yes. But at the same time, he also showed you love too as well. And just for that, all the 9 years we played, all the 9 years those great players played for him. I mean, it was some good story. They tell you some great stories, and it was times that players wanted to beat the crap out of him, but every time he always was tough on them and hard on them. But at the same time, he also showed them love. But he was going to be missed. Dean Allen, one of the greatest coaches in Don's history, was gone at the age of 48. Filling in for for Dean Allen, the legendary coach. Filling in for the late legendary coach Dean Allen is Mike Morris. The team went 8-6 in 1962, kept the winning ways but no NFL championships. 1963, they went 7-7. Same thing in 64. But in 1965, the team hit rock bottom again. Their first losing season since 1953, Dean Allen's first year. And their second double-digit losing season in franchise history since 52. The Dons went 4-10 in 1965, and Mike Morris was fired. I think after 65, the Dons were looking for a new direction. Some guys were aging. And some were retiring, and we had injuries, and it was just a complete, total mess. So we knew we had to reboot. So in 1966, the Dons would hire John Hall, a man coming over from the Canadian Football League. John Hall had great credentials, great leadership, and was a great teacher of the game. But he needed men. He needed great students and great men to play the game the right way in order for the Dons to be successful again. Yeah, John Hall, it was a pretty good hire. And he was a really good man, great coach, great teacher of the game, student of the game. Not afraid to teach guys how to play the game and play it the right way. Maybe not as approachable. Dean Allen, he was tough, but at the same time he was approachable. John Hall, he was a teacher of the game, sometimes not approachable, but he was a good man. You knew it, but he was just always had that, arm's length apart kind of guy. But despite all that, the Dons went 8-6 in 1966 in his first year, highlighting their first ever win against the Falcons, expansion team, 39-24. And then in 1967, more the same. 1986. 8-6. Excuse me. They were 8-6 in 1967, and they highlighted with a comeback win in Atlanta, 33-26. Yeah, that was one of the great games that team played. They were down, and then they just found a way to fight back, come back in the game, and get a W. But in 1968, the Dons would go 11-3. But no trips to the NFL championship game. Yeah, it was a good 1968 was a good year. Guys now starting to come together, starting to piece it together, started to gel, started to learn what it's like to play winning football, and that winning football highlighted with the Dons' first trip to New Orleans, 49-20 win against the Saints in Week 11 of 1968. And the final game, Week 14 against the Packers, 35-20. But in 1969, that's when the Dons will have one of their best seasons in franchise history. 1969 was the start of what Dons football was once again becoming. 1969, that team had one of the best rosters we ever witnessed. We had the Dons quarterback, who was really good. We had our receiver, Dookie Williams, who was really good. We just had some talent. And it helps that John Hall won Coach of the Year in 1969. Highlighted with a big win, 52-10 over the Baltimore Colts. Now the two losses against the Kings and the first time against the Rams didn't shake their confidence. But the Dons will finish 1969 with a franchise best 12 wins and their first ever division title in franchise history, culminated first in a Week 13 matchup against the Rams in the Coliseum. Yeah, this game was almost like that UCLA USC game in '67. I mean, whoever won that game was going to win the division, and it was going to be a hard fought battle between those two teams, and that's what the game ended up becoming. Down 20-19 to the Rams, the Dons were driving, and that's when the Dons running back made one of the biggest runs in Dons history. I remember he broke. It was a good block. We were at their 49-yard line, plus side of the 49-yard line. And I remember the Dons quarterback handed to the Dons running back, and I remember he saw lane. He hits it, broke off one tackle, and then just kind of cut back to the left, and there was nothing but daylight. And he scored that touchdown, and we kicked the extra point, and our defense went back out there, one of the Rams receivers caught it, then he fumbled, we recovered it, we win the game, and knowing that we won the Coastal Division title at the time, it was just a great feeling. And just like that, the Dons were back in the spotlight. They beat the defending NFL champion Colts again, 36-10, to play the Minnesota Vikings in the Western Conference playoff title game. But that game, the Dons will have to fight hard to get that win. Yeah, I remember that game. Oh man, we were down like 2 touchdowns, and we had to fight back hard to get back in that game. And that's what the Dons quarterback of 1969 did. He willed the Dons back into the game and into Dons history, Dons lore, and history. And it was one of the great comebacks in Dons football playoff history. And that game symbolized what Dons football and what proud sons of California would do in situations when times get tough. We fight, and we fight hard, and we don't ever give up. And against the Vikings, they did exactly that. They fought hard, came all the way back, and beat the Vikings 38-31 to advance to the NFL championship game against the Cleveland Browns. And yeah, it wasn't like that game had a different feeling. I mean, it was an NFL championship game, but if we won that game, we would play the winner of the AFL champion in the Mega Bowl in 2 weeks. So we knew, okay, we had to take care of business against Cleveland. And just like that, from the word jump, that's what the Dons did. They went out and defeat the Cleveland Browns 30-13 to win the franchise's 3rd NFL championship and earned the right to play in the 1970 Mega Bowl. Yeah, that game against the Cleveland Browns, that was a great feeling. That was a great feeling to win the NFL championship game. I mean, you think you could just relax and celebrate, but realizing that 2 weeks we got one more game to play, and we gotta try to win that one for our league. And in Tulane Stadium in New Orleans, they will play the 1970 Mega Bowl against a team who will be their nemesis for years to come, and the Hartford Shamrocks, formerly known as the Boston Shamrocks. And in that game, the Dons were not at their best. Yeah, everything went wrong in that game. I mean, everything was just wrong. We would beat ourselves in the worst fashion. Penalties, turnovers, just sloppy play. Just sloppy play all over the field. And the Shamrocks, give them credit, they took advantage of it and they kicked our tails. They really kicked our tails in that game. And just like that, the Dons will lose their first of two Mega Bowls at the hands of the Shamrocks. Yeah, that game we were just befuddled. We were devastated and could not believe we lost that game to the Shamrocks and lost the Mega Bowl, knowing that was the last game of the AFL versus NFL. Also in my fun segment, so we knew that the two leagues were going to merge, and we wanted to go out victorious, but just didn't end it that way. So the loss to the Shamrocks didn't dampen their spirit, but in 1970, everything would change. 1970s. In 1970, the Dons were in the NFC West, joining their two biggest rivals, the Niners and the Rams, in that division, along with the Falcons and Saints. All right. In their first season ever in the NFC West, the Dons' first game was against the Chicago Bears at home in the Coliseum, beating them 44-13 before losing to the Shamrocks on Monday night. But the Dons was rolling through. In their first game against the Chargers, the Dons would dominate 37-13. They tied with the Niners, but then traveled to Cincinnati and beat the Bengals for the first time in franchise history. And after that, the Dons rolled to 11-2-1 in 1970, winning the first ever NFC West Division title and clinching the number 2 seed in the NFC, facing the Dallas Cowboys in the first ever NFC divisional round. The game was not close, as the Dons dominated the Cowboys 44-27 to earn their first ever trip to the NFC Championship game. Their first ever NFC Championship game on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, that game, this time we're in Minnesota, but we wasn't losing that game. And the Dons went out and dominated the Vikings 35-13 to earn the first ever NFC Championship trophy in franchise history on the road, and the last time, and that'll be the last time the Dons will win a playoff game on the road. Yeah, that NFC Championship game at Minnesota, that victory, that was good, but we know we got one more, and that was that Mega Bowl. And in the 1971 Mega Bowl, the opponent, once again, was the Hartford Shamrocks. In the 1971 Mega Bowl, in the 1971 Mega Bowl in the Orange Bowl, the Dons and Shamrocks met again. In the first quarter, it was tied at 3, but in the second quarter, once again, Luck was on the Shamrock side. He threw a 70-yard TD pass, and it was tipped. Both Dons players tipped it, and then the receiver caught it. It was sort of like that Super Bowl 5 touchdown. And I'm thinking, oh, no, not again. And just like that, the Shamrocks were up on the Dons 10-3. In the third quarter, it was more of the same. Mega Bowl MVP, Shamrocks running back of 1970, ran a 5-yard touchdown, but the Dons were not going to give up. Their kicker kicked the field goal to cut the lead to 11 before an interception gave the Dons some life. And the Dons quarterback threw a 15-yard touchdown to the tight end. And after the Shamrocks went 3 and out, the Dons now had a chance to win the game. And I mean, we're driving down the field, you know, we're moving the ball well. I mean, we got momentum on our side, and we get all the way down to the 4-yard line, excuse me. We get all the way down to the 4-yard line, and here we go. And then quarterback gets the snap, He's looking. He rolls to the right, but the Shamrock defender gets in his way, and tried to throw it over him. Well, he threw a sidearm. He tried to throw it over him, but he couldn't. So he sidearmed it, and the Shamrock defender, yeah, yeah, he tried to throw it over him, but he sidearmed it a little bit, and then the Shamrock defender got in there in the nick of time and picked off the pass. And you talking about your heart being ripped out again by this team? It was just devastating. It was just like, ugh. We had it, and now once again, we don't. And just like that, the Dons would lose their second straight Mega Bowl again to the Hartford Shamrocks. Yeah. And that loss, 17-13 loss to the Shamrocks, that loss, it was 17-13, by the way. Yeah. It was 17-13, y'all, by the way. We lost to the Shamrocks. And knowing what happened last year, they blew us out. But we lose in this fashion. And the first NFL team to lose 2 Mega Bowls. It was just devastating and heartbreaking. And I don't know if we ever wanted to go back to LA and face our fans after that loss. I mean, it was just so painful to lose that Mega Bowl once again to the Shamrocks. And knowing that we had the momentum. And we just couldn't capitalize. And just like that, the Shamrocks walk out as champions. 1971, the Dons' last hurrah in the NFL. The Dons' first trip up to Kansas City was a victorious one, beating the Chiefs 38-13, but it would fizzle out. 2 embarrassing losses to the Niners, including another loss to the Shamrocks, would end their rise as being champions in the future. Because the Dons in 71 would finish 7-7. But highlighted with the biggest wins of the last 2 games of the season. First, the last battle of Los Angeles with the Rams ended with a 1-point victory with a big touchdown pass to Dookie Williams. And then the next week, the Dons' final game in the NFL in Atlanta on a Monday night against the Falcons. The Dons will exit the NFL stage right. Yep. The Dons would win. The Dons would beat the Falcons 34-23 to send them off the right way. Yeah. The last game. Well, let's start with the last game in the Coliseum against the Rams. That was an emotional time for not only for the Dons but for the Rams, because we know that we're not going to see each other again twice a year after that. And the Rams fans and Dons fans, never in my life in the Coliseum rival fans, but the Dons and Rams fan came together, hugged, and said, "Hey, we're going to miss you guys, playing you guys." And you could just tell that rivalry in my fun segment is just, it means something. And it was mutual. And then the next game in Atlanta against the Falcons on a Monday night, more emotional. But not too many. We had some of our fans down there, but you could tell the players and the coaches, we knew that was it. That was the last time that you're going to see Dons football. And we didn't know We didn't know if Don's football was ever going to come back in the future, but we just made that Atlanta game in Atlanta, made that game in Atlanta against the Falcons count it like it was our Mega Bowl, and guys went out, was professional, and did it the right way and did it with class. And just like that, after 71, Don's football was over. The 1990s. 1996, Don's football was back. After the Rams and Raiders left town, after the Rams and Raiders left town, there was no team in LA. In the NFL, there was no team in LA for 20 years until 2016 when the Rams came back. But in Mike's Fun segment, a Hispanic descendant named Fernando Gonzalez Sr. purchased the Dons in 96 and decided to be the owner. A Mexican descendant and a huge Dons fan himself. He made a big investment in restaurants and also a movie producer. But he's a big football fan, and his favorite team was the Dons. Yeah, when Fernando Gonzalez Sr. purchased the team, he wanted to bring Dons football back, and he wanted to bring it back with joy and commitment to excellence and winning and dominance and all that. And in 1996, the Dons will be back for the first time since 1971. After 25 years, the Los Angeles Dons were back in Mike's Fun segment. The head coach was John Smart, and their opponent, you guessed it, the Rams, this time in St. Louis. But the game was played in the Coliseum on a Sunday night. And boy, that was a great moment. We remember 1971, the last original Battle of LA in the Coliseum. The Dons won that game, but I remember the Rams and Dons fans hugging, crying, in tears because that was the last time you would see these two teams go at it. But now, 25 years later, the Rams go to St. Louis, the Raiders back in Oakland, and now in 1996, the Dons are back. You couldn't write a better script than this. And now, this was just unbelievable. And Fernando Gonzalez Sr., he was just so happy about this. He was so happy that he purchased the team, and he wanted to see the team do good. Great owner, just love to take care of his players, whether they're current or former. Take care of his coaches, same thing. Current or former, and he's just all about family, and that's what he wanted to bring to the Dons organization, like Bill Mace did, and somewhat Bill Lindheimer back in the All-American Football Conference. Bring that family atmosphere to the Dons organization, and that's what I try to do. Try to bring a family atmosphere or familia in Hispanic term, if I'm saying it right, Hispanic people, the familia atmosphere, meaning family atmosphere, to the organization. And just like that, the first game against the Rams was a good one. The Dons would win 35-24 to win their first game back in LA. First game back in the league and in LA on a Sunday night in the Coliseum. The next week, beat the Kings, who was now in Hawaii, by 10. And then against the Panthers, the first time ever, beat them by 10, 27-17, and then travel up to Columbus, Ohio, to face the Ohio Bulldogs for the first time, the team who replaced them in the NFC West in 1974 before they moved to the NFC Central in 96, because the Dons are back. And the Dons will win by 10, 45-35. And the Dons will continue to roll over the Falcons, Saints, before falling to earth to the 49ers, who are now just dominant, who've been dominant since the 80s. With, when they first with Joe Montana, Dwight Clark, Jerry Rice, Bill Walsh, and now Ronnie Lott, and now with Steve Young, Jerry Rice, George Seifert. Just like, man. But they rebounded against the Houston Oilers and beat them in the first meeting ever, and beat them 27-20. Before losing some games, before losing 4 in a row, and then bounce back against New Orleans, in the Superdome, 37-24. But they would finish the season 9-7, just like 1946. Their first year back in the league in Mike's Fun segment, they finished with a winning record, 9-7, and enter the playoffs against the defending world champion Dallas Cowboys. And on that night in Texas Stadium, the Dons will fall flat on their face, getting demolished by the Cowboys, 50-9. Yeah, that was just an ass kicking. I mean, the Cowboys just laid an ass kicking on the Dons, and boy, that's probably the worst loss in Dons franchise history. To get clobbered by the Cowboys, who were defending world champions, having Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, Deion Sanders, and boy, I mean, I understand those guys are great, but to lose like that was embarrassing. But more embarrassing moments came. In 1997, they went 6-10. In 98, they went 7-9. But in 1999, they would pick it back up. Their first trip out to Charleston, West Virginia to face the Spartans. And they would beat them 42-14. But despite that win, the Dons would go up and down. They would be up and down during that season, including a tie against San Francisco, before traveling, out to Nashville to take on now the Tennessee Titans. And boy, I remember that. I remember everybody's talking about, yeah, you guys are gonna get whooped. You're gonna lose to the Titans. You're gonna get beat up. You guys are no good. And then they went up to Nashville and kicked their tails. And just like that, they beat the eventual AFC champions that year, 44-7. But the next game, against another AFC Central opponent, the Jacksonville Jaguars, that game, that would be one of the greatest classic games in Don's history. At first, Jacksonville was winning. And I remember things were not going well, but third-year quarterback Carlos Montana and fourth-year running back Derek Vance would lead them, along with rookie Terrence Wills, would lead them in a comeback victory, would lead them to comeback heading into overtime. And in their second overtime game in franchise history, the first one ended in a tie against the Niners. This one, no doubt, the Dons would get the victory. And I remember we got down in field goal position, and I remember our kicker was just cool, calm, collected, got the snap, kicked it, field goal is good, and the Dons win their first ever overtime in their first ever overtime in franchise history. So, in that 99 season, the Dons will beat two of the best teams in the AFC, both coming from the AFC Central at the time, the Titans and the Jaguars. The Dons next week did beat Baltimore, but kind of faltered down the stretch and limped into the playoffs against Washington, where once again they would lose another playoff game. This loss was bad, but it wasn't bad like it was against the Cowboys. But that 99 team, it was a roller coaster, up and down, highs and lows. I mean, but they ended up in the playoffs, but we knew that they were one and done. And just like that, the Dons' magic ride will come to an abrupt halt. The 2000s. Entering the 2000 season, the Dons did have high hopes, but the first game against the 49ers failed to indicate that, as they lost to them 30-13. They had some moments, including their first ever win against the Raiders. But losses to the Cardinals in Arizona before they played the Raiders, and getting swept by the Saints. And another big win on Monday night against Denver, however, was the biggest highlights. It was the biggest highlight of the 2000 season. But after that, like 99, they would falter. But heading into the last game against the Rams, where they needed a win to keep their playoff hopes alive, the Dons did not perform well and lost to the Rams. Yeah, we didn't play well. All we had to do was win one game. Potentially, we would still be in the playoffs. I mean, to keep our playoff hopes alive, we'd still be in it. But after that, we just didn't play well. The Rams got in. And just like that, our season was over. And the Dons will finish 2000 7-9. And in 2001, the Dons will once again hit rock bottom, going 5-11. And after that, John Smart was fired. Yeah, I think at that time it was the right move, because I think the players and the coach couldn't get along. I mean, John Smart, I mean, he's a talented coach, but I think his way, because he was a college coach, he thought the way that he did things in college was going to work in the NFL, and it just didn't. And just couldn't get along, especially with the star players like Derek Vance and Terrence Wills, and even his quarterback Carlos Montana. And he just couldn't get along with some of the players and some of the coaches too. So it was a big divide, and Fernando Gonzalez Sr. just had to pull the plug on it. And after that, and yeah, not to mention, he was just too much of a hard ass. I mean, just too angry, volatile, always just getting into it, and it just didn't work out. And just like that, Smart was gone. In 2002, the Dons will have a new head coach. Promoted to head coach, Drew Skipper. In 2002, the Dons started off against the San Diego Chargers. Under Drew Skipper, they would win their first two games. But once again, they would falter. The first loss in Hawaii, and the next one at home against the Thunder, and against a familiar face. John Smart, now coach of the Thunder. And the Thunder came in and they beat us up. Beat the Thunder beat the Dons 27-0. We got shut out blanket by this team, and that was embarrassing. And the embarrassing part that John Smart, that was our coach the previous season, now their coach, and was kind of rubbing it in. And just like that, the losing continued. Continued and continued. And the Dons will not notch another victory until week 16 against the Spartans. And the Dons will beat the Spartans 28-3. And then their last game against the Cardinals 29-0. Finishing 2002 with the franchise one of the worst franchise record and one of the worst seasons in franchise history, going 4-12. And that's the first time the Dons will have back-to-back double-digit losing seasons in franchise history. And after 2002, Drew Skipper will be fired. So after Drew Skipper being fired, after the 2002 season, Drew Skipper was fired. The Dons were now once again in search of a new head coach. Yeah, the Dons were just going after Steve Mariucci. Heck, they was going after Bill Parcells, for crying out loud. But we knew he wasn't going to take that job. He was going after John Gruden. He was going after the big names. But the man he ended up hiring, no one knew who the hell he was. No one knew who the hell he was. But Fernando Gonzalez did. He was hoping this coach that he would hire would be the second coming of Dean Allen. And his name, James White. The first African-American head coach ever in Don's history. His background: he was a special teams and secondary coach for the Barcelona Dragons, where they won World Bowls and won a lot of big games. But everyone wanted to know, how does this coach will fit in to the American game, knowing that he coached in NFL Europe? Well, it beat us because it beats me, but I think Fernando Gonzalez saw something in James that no one did, and the media, just like with USC hired Pete Carroll, the media was like, okay, who's this guy? You sure that this guy can coach? You sure this guy can lead a team? You sure? It was all kind of question marks about James White. He seemed like he just didn't belong in the game. In this NFL game, he didn't belong in the NFL coaching ranks. He was not even the first choice. So everybody was crapping on him, and as players, we was trying to do that. We complete. What's that? That search, the Wikipedia search. I can't pronounce the name, but we had to do our research on him, and no one knew who he was. But that press conference, we were just so impressed. I think the media was impressed of how he carried himself, how he spoke, how he trying to get the direction of the Dons back to greatness. And I'm thinking, all right, we'll give him a shot. And just like that, in 2003, Coach White went to work. And in his first game as head coach of the Dons, he would get his first win against the Seattle Seahawks, 37-25. And then the next one against the Cincinnati Bengals, before falling to the Baltimore Ravens and Cleveland Browns the next 2 weeks. He would pick wins back up against the Cardinals before a big Monday night game on the Madden 04 on Mike the LA Dons fan old channel, Mike the Dons fan against the Pittsburgh Steelers. 3 parts to that. And the Dons would crush the Steelers 45-19 under first-year starter Warwick Locker. And that was a big deal. They beat the Steelers on a Monday night. That was a big deal. But the next 2 losses against the Bears and Rams and a bye week prompted the game to be ready for the Green Bay Packers. And in that game, on my old channel, Mike the Dons fan, the Dons would dominate the Packers 38-14, and Warwick Locker had a great game. But then the Dons would lose 3 of the next 4, starting with the Vikings in a 16-0 shutout, losing to the NorCal team again, and then 2 weeks later losing to Seattle in overtime on a Monday night. So then they're thinking, okay, is this coach know what he's doing? That's what everyone's questioning. Does this Coach White guy know what he's doing? But that question would be answered in Week 15 against the San Francisco 49ers. And those throwback classics in the 50s that will be later worn in the Manny Reyes era. Yeah, that game in the Coliseum against the 49ers, they came out in those throwbacks, and boy, the band was there. The Dons marching band was playing, and they haven't beaten the Niners in 33 years, by the way, at that time. And just like that, the Dons would end that misery, beating the Niners 27-10 and winning, starting with that game, winning their last 3 games to finish the 03 season 9-7. And Coach White did a great job. We all had question marks about him. I mean, me in particular, I did, but hey, under his leadership, the team showed promise that they can be a really good team. And in the following year, in 2004, the Dons will continue that, going 9-6-1, highlighted big wins over the Shamrocks on Monday night, 37-10, and crushing the Rams 51-7. And they capped the 2004 season with the playoff bowl victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars 45-17. I think that 04 season was now coming together. Guys learning, even though they were a young team, but they were building and they were trusting each other, and they were starting to trust the coaches, and it was just now coming together at the right time, and it kind of captivated not only the city, the town, but the fan base, and that led to one of the greatest seasons that the franchise has ever endured, going into 05. 2005, the greatest season ever in franchise history. Coach White was entering his 3rd year, and they had a little chubby fullback and a guy named Mike Jones. Yeah, thank goodness we got him, because he was a difference maker coming into our organization. And not to mention, Coach White did a marvelous job of retooling this roster under Derek, retooling this roster, building around Derek Vance, Terrence Wills, to help Warwick Locker and keeping Nathan Smith those guys that been around a long time with along with Devon Means, Jose, Johnny Miller, Big Al, and getting guys like Dwayne White and Byron Walker, Matt Malutu, um, who else? Had a slot receiver in McCord who was a free agent. Ain't none of that. You got some players from the NFL Europe, and yeah, players from NFL Europe, and had two players from the Arena League. So that propelled us in the success that we had, in the mid late 2000s. But in '05, the greatest season in Don's history was about to commence. Coach White had one of his best years as a head coach. But the first game was in Orlando. It was a tightly contested ball game. But until the Dons defense, ranked number 1, would force 5 Orlando turnovers, and the Dons would prevail 24-19 over the Thunder. That was a huge game. That was a game that was indicating to the league and to the football world that, hey, this is our year. This is our year. No one's going to take it away from us. The following week in St. Louis on the Madden 04 on my old channel, Mike the Dons fan, the Dons would crush the Rams and would get their first ever win in St. Louis. Their first win in St. Louis since 1970, and their first win at the Rams since the 60s. That was a big win. That was a big win for us, and we knew, just like, man, I think the tides has really turned. And it showed that, man, these guys really trust each other. These guys really trust each other with their lives. And they just know that, hey, we haven't been anywhere. So I trust my life with this guy. I know this guy got my back and I got his no matter what happens. And on a Monday night in the Coliseum against the defending NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles, the fullback that wore number 41, Mike Jones, make his debut. And the Dons controlled the game before Philly made a furious comeback, but the Dons stopped them in their tracks and won the ball game, 28-20. That was a good game, and it indicates that, again, no matter what happens, we stay together and we find ways to win the game. And that continued, beating the Niners 29-0 before a big defensive stand against Washington in the Coliseum would indicate how together the Dons are as a team. I remember Washington was driving and they were in our red zone. They needed 4 cracks to get in the end zone. I remember the first pass, incomplete. I remember the second down, Jose sacks Mark Brunell. Now it's third down. And once again, Jose sacks Brunell again, and now it's fourth down. Actually, then it was fourth down, but then a penalty, false start, and then they moved them back. And then Leroy Spence caught the interception in the end zone, and we won the game. And I'm like, man, that was the loudest I ever heard the Coliseum all my years, like ever. That interception in the end zone by Leroy, that was probably the loudest I heard the Coliseum. And then the Dons began their 4-game road trip, starting in Dallas, where Warwick Locker stole the show, and the Dons got revenge on the Cowboys in Texas Stadium for what they did to them in '96. Yeah, Warwick was on fire that day. He was hot. He was throwing passes and receivers making plays. Dwayne White was making plays, and boy, it felt good to win in old Texas Stadium. And then they beat them 48-20. Up next with the Arizona Cardinals. Mike Jones and Derek Vance will take the show. Both went over 100 yards as they dismantled the Cardinals 49-26 before going up to Tennessee and having a battle with the Titans. Yeah, it was a crazy battle. I mean, it's in Nashville. It was hot, humid. We had control most of the game, but Tennessee was making a furious comeback, but we held them off and got the W. And just like that, the Dons continue to roll. And to cap off the road trip, Coach White was looking to get his first win in San Francisco. And they did it in dominating fashion, crushing the Niners and once again blanketed them to 0 points, beating them 28-0 to complete the 4-game road trip, the first time that's ever been done in franchise history, winning all 4 straight games on the road. That was crazy. Won all 4 straight games on the road, and to do them all, to do 3 of them in dominating fashion, that was just great. And then another big game on Monday night in the rain in the Coliseum against the undefeated Indianapolis Colts. Oh, that was going to be a tough task. They're undefeated. We're undefeated. And we wore those 50 classics in our throwbacks that would later be worn by Manny Reyes and his crew. And we came out that game and we dominated them. Dominated them, they did. And Warwick Locker once again had a great game. And the Dons crushed the Colts 41-14 on my old channel, Mike the Dons Fan. Check that out. They blanketed the Cardinals before going up to Seattle and suffering their first ever defeat and their only defeat of the season against the Seahawks. Yeah, that game, Seattle was a good team as well. They had Sean Alexander, Matt Hasselbeck, Mike Holmgren doing a coaching job up in Seattle. They just really had a good team, and we fought, but we didn't play well to win the game. And then the following week against the Rams, the Dons came out sleepwalking. Yeah, that game, first half of that game, we looked a little sluggish. Mainly because from that Seattle game, but the guys in that locker room said, not this time. Not on our watch. And they went back out there, fought back, tied the game up, and sent it into overtime. And then the play, everyone remembers, that would live in Don's lore against the Rams every time. Warwick Locker to McCord to give us the victory. And just like that, the Dons beat the Rams in overtime, and the Dons will finish the 05 season strong and with the franchise best 15-1, earning Coach White his first ever Coach of the Year honors. Derek Vance was league MVP. Warwick Locker, Offensive Player of the Year. Jose Diaz, Defensive Player of the Year, and fullback. Technically, he wasn't a rookie, but Mike Jones, Rookie of the Year. And the Dons was now ready to make their run and their mark in the postseason. In the divisional round against Carolina on my old channel, Mike the Dons Fan, the dominance continued. The Dons shut out the Panthers and blanketed Steve Smith throughout the game. While the Dons offense was more efficient and fluid, the defense was dominant. And the Dons win their first postseason game in 35 years, shutting out the Panthers 41-0 and advancing to the NFC Championship game. Remember that game, the Dons came to the Coliseum. They were ready for that game. They were ready to win the franchise's first playoff game in 35 years. And to beat the Panthers and shut them out 41-0, I'm thinking, wow, this team has really came along. And in the 05 NFC Championship game, that trend continued against the Seattle Seahawks. On this channel, Mike the LA Dons fan, 37-0. And the Dons just came out and just manhandled the Seahawks like they did in week 17 for the division. And boy, that team just came out with fire in their eyes and they just kicked the Seahawks' tail. In a 37-0 rout against the Seahawks, the Dons will earn their third trip to the Mega Bowl. I mean, yeah, that 37-0 win over the Seahawks to earn our first trip to the Mega Bowl in 35 years. And you see the Coliseum, you see the USC marching band, you see some of the celebrities. Our marching band was there. I mean, it was the largest crowd ever in NFC Championship game history in my fun segment. And none of that, we clobbered the Seahawks and we produced our second shutout of the postseason. And boy, these guys were just really fired up for this game. And I just couldn't be more happy. And just like that, the Dons were on to Houston to face a familiar foe in the 06 Mega Bowl. But you got to give credit to Coach White. Coach of the year. He really just, took over when this franchise was down and out. And boy, he just gave them life. And now they were one win away from being champions. And to beat the Seahawks in that NFC Championship game, that was a great feeling. But we knew that we had one more game to go. And that was against a familiar opponent that had their number in the late 60s and early 70s. After dominating the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game and shutting down Sean Alexander in the high-powered Seahawks offense, and not to mention, the NFC Championship game was also played on Kobe Bryant 81-point game against the Raptors, the Dons were now looking for a new challenge. In Houston, on my old channel, Mike the Dons fan, against the Hartford Shamrocks in the 06 Mega Bowl. That game, we knew we had to win that game. We went into that game in Houston. We had a great week of practice. I mean, guys were just on time. They knew that this was serious. We could not afford to lose this game. We could not afford to play our worst game of the season. This was a game we had to win. And guys, that whole week during the practice, took it seriously. They knew what was at stake, and we knew what we had to do to get it done. And in Reliance Stadium in Houston, the Dons would do just that. In the first quarter, the Dons would take a 3-0 lead on Nigel Grove's 25-yard field goal. Before second quarter, Derek Vance, who will have a big game and become the league's MVP, who will also become the Mega Bowl MVP, scored a 1-yard touchdown. But a Derek Vance fumble got the Shamrocks back in the game. And the score at halftime was 13-7. So we get in halftime. We're up 13-7. Guys were kind of, I wouldn't say mad, but kind of not. I wouldn't say mad, but they were kind of a little frustrated because we felt like we should be up by more points. But I remember Coach White, calm as he is, cool, calm, collected as he is, he's a coach that never get in your face or cuss at you or yell at you. But he always coached you the right way. He always was honest with you. But he told us that day, cool and calm, he said, guys, we go out there in that second half, I want you to play the best second half of your lives. This would be play the best second half of your lives. And let's leave Houston with this trophy. Let's come back in this locker room with the trophy, celebrating, and leave Houston with the trophy, celebrating in Los Angeles. And in the second half, the Shamrocks were driving. They were driving down the field. And I remember one play. One play that started the second half explosion, as I call it. Byron Walker nailed Jackson, nailed him. Ball. Jackson had the ball. Byron Walker nailed him. Johnny Miller on the spot with the interception, and then the second half explosion started. It started with the turnover, and then Derek Vance capitalized on a touchdown, and then the Dons kept rolling. And they just kept scoring. Warwick Locker threw a touchdown to Dwayne, and then threw another one to Japaru. I mean, we just kept scoring and scoring, and Shamrocks kept turning it over. And then in the fourth quarter, the best backfield duo put the icing on the cake on the Dons' first ever Mega Bowl championship in franchise history and their first world title since 1959. Yep, Derek Vance scored that 6-yard touchdown, and then Mike Jones scored the final. And the Los Angeles and Coach White got that Gatorade bath. And we made sure we carried him off the field because he deserved it. And the Los Angeles Dons will win their first ever Mega Bowl championship by crushing the Shamrocks 48-7. Derek Vance, performance of the ages, was the Mega Bowl MVP on 51 carries, 252 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And the Dons finally conquering the Shamrocks in the Mega Bowl. And Coach White made history, becoming the first African American head coach ever to win the Mega Bowl. And for him, for Coach White, a great man, great leader, just a tremendous human being, and the players love him. And for what he did for this franchise, reviving it and becoming the second coming of Dean Allen. And we know now we have reset, I should say, or reestablished the winning tradition of the Los Angeles Dons and the rebirth of dominance for years to come. And the Dons will enjoy this championship heading back to Los Angeles. Yeah, knowing that winning the game, but beating the Shamrocks to win that Mega Bowl, that was just outstanding. And that night we crossed over. We crossed over, and we just, that was probably the night, that game changed the fortunes of the franchise forever. And the Dons will forever have 05 as their first ever Mega Bowl championship. In 2006, the Dons were ready to defend their crown. That was the first time. I mean, the game against the Vikings, we have our banner reveal. We won our first ever Mega Bowl championship in franchise history. Our first world title since '59. I mean, wow. It was just a great culmination of what happened. In 2006, the Dons would have a good season. They would finish 11-5. They would finish 11-5 and win the NFC West again, facing the New York Football Giants in the playoffs. And they would win again 39-14. But in the divisional round, they would fall to the Saints. In 2007, more of the same. Division champions, 13-3, highlighted with the win in Pittsburgh over the Steelers, 38-14. But the biggest win of that season was in the NFC Super Wild Card against Washington. Yeah, that game was crazy. I mean, Washington had control most of that game, and they had control most of that game, and it just felt like the stadium was quiet. I mean, the air was kind of just being sucked out until Washington kept making mistakes and we capitalized. And Washington had two opportunities to win the game. But the Dons, the proud sons of Californians that they are, fought back and in double overtime, once again, made a play for the ages that will live in Don's history. I remember Derek Vance got the snap. He's standing in the pocket, and I remember Dwayne White just running that post, and Locker just threw that ball, and he just hit Dwayne White on the money. He catches it, skips into the end zone, touchdown, game over. We move on to the next round. But in the next round, they once again will lose to the Packers. This time lose to the Packers in the NFC divisional round. In 2008, once again, they once again win the NFC West, going 13-2-1. But then again, in the divisional round, but highlight with a win against the Cowboys on a Sunday night in their throwbacks, and the tie against the Shamrocks, the team they beat in the 2006 Mega Bowl. But they finished the season. 13-2-1 before falling to the Arizona Cardinals in the divisional round at home. That loss to the Cardinals, that was tough. That was a tough one because we knew that was probably the main that was the chance to go back to the Mega Bowl and win, because to lose to the Cardinals like that was heartbreaking. Even though we swept them that year, and the part that really hurt, that Mike Jones kind of had a hamstring injury in that game, and he never returned, and there goes 2008. Here's the 2008 schedule, y'all. 2009, the Dons playing their last season in the Coliseum as the home team. I think 2009, the guys came together, they recommitted themselves, and they focused on not only getting back to the Mega Bowl, but winning the Mega Bowl again. They want to have that same feeling that they had when they won it all in 2005 against the Shamrocks. And the journey would start in Montreal, Canada. The Dons' first ever trip to Canada to take on the Montreal Machine. That was on Checkerboard the Football Men. And the Dons would dominate them 56-10. The Dons beat the Lions before losing to the Riders at home. Yeah, that loss was kind of inexcusable. We were frustrated, but we knew that, okay, we got to go back to practice and regroup. And they did that. And the showdown on a Sunday night in Indianapolis. Oh yeah, that was one of the biggest games. That's one of the biggest games of that season. We had a big lead on Indianapolis, and I think an interception by Locker, and then the Colts got back in it. At one point, they took the lead. It was 24-17, but Warwick Locker, who was 2008 league MVP, by the way, led the Dons into a comeback, first tying the game. It was He tied the game with a touchdown pass to Tyrone Richards. We got the ball back, and then Mike Jones pounded in. It was 31-24, and the defense had to stop him. And Matt Malutu made one of the big plays of the season, tricking Jeff Saturday, thinking he was going to drop back, but then he blitzed, and Peyton Manning never saw him, and he got the sack, and we won the game. After that win against the Colts on Sunday night in Indianapolis, after their bye week, their last loss of the season came in Minnesota. Yeah, Minnesota was a good team. They really played well. They really kind of stifled our offense. We really couldn't do nothing, even though our defense was playing well. But our offense couldn't do much. We did something, but not enough. And just like that, Minnesota beat the Dons. But that would be the Dons' last loss, because the next week they would play the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday night on the Madden 09 on my old channel, Mike the Dons Fan. And remember that game. We were ready for that game. And I remember the first play of the game. I remember Kurt Warner threw the ball to one of the Cardinals receivers, and Devon Means laid a hit, fumble. We recovered, and then we just dominated. And just like that, the Dons beat the Cardinals 48-24. But the biggest comeback of the season happened the following week on Monday night in Seattle. Oh yeah, we were down 21-9, 21-9, and we were down 21-9 at halftime. And I remember Coach, our offensive coordinator told us, stick with it. All right, I know we're down 21-9, but let's approach this game like it's nothing to nothing. Go out there, play like I know you can play, and we'll win this ball game. And we did that, but it didn't start out that way, because Warwick Locker threw it. We were down the red zone. Warwick Locker threw an interception, and luckily, our running back just stopped them. But they did score. But then Warwick Locker, like I said, who was league MVP in 2008, led a comeback for the Dons, and we just kept fighting. We kept fighting, kept believing, and we didn't give up. And on the last touchdown to Dwayne White, that was the symbol of, hey, we're the Dons. We're not going to back down to anybody. We're more than just Hollywood, rich, talented, and just a show. We're a team that's going to fight no matter what. And just like that, the Dons beat the Seahawks on a Monday night on the Madden 09 on my old channel, Mike the Dons Fan, 38-35. And after that, the Dons rolled, beating the Rams 52-14, and just rolling through the rest of the 09 season and into the 09 postseason. Against the Dallas Cowboys. That game, that's also my old channel, Mike the Dons Fan. That game was crazy. And it was a high-scoring affair. But it came with a cost, because Warwick Locker got injured and he missed the rest of the game, so we had to rely upon our backup. And at halftime, it was tied at 24. So the Dons had to rely on their backup quarterback to win that game. And I remember Coach said, hey, this is fun. Ain't it fun? Hey, it's 24 all. This the NFL. Nothing easy. Let's go out and play like Dons like we always do. And that's what we did. It was a back and forth affair. And I think we kicked the field goal to win the game. We kicked the field goal in the last seconds, and the Dons beat the Cowboys 41-14 to advance to the NFC Championship game against the New Orleans Saints. And the last final home game ever for the Dons in the LA Coliseum. And more encouraging, Warwick Locker was back in the lineup. And the Dons got revenge on the Saints. And Warwick Locker led the Dons to victory. And the Dons were heading back to the Mega Bowl. That was one of the best feelings. That's one of the best feelings, knowing that we're going back to the Mega Bowl and we beat the Saints and playing the last game ever in the LA Coliseum as the home team in that stadium. It was just great memories, man. The band was there, our band and the USC marching band and the celebrities that was there, and our fan base. It was just a great feeling to know that we played our last home game ever in the LA Coliseum, and we're going out, and to go out as NFC champions was a greater feeling. And just like that, the Dons were going back to the Mega Bowl, this time in Miami. 2010 Mega Bowl in Miami on the big electrical field of team drawings against the San Diego Chargers. That game against the Chargers, probably one of the most funnest games I ever played in Miami. Now Sun Life Stadium against Phillip Rivers, LaDainian Tomlinson, Sean Phillips, Vincent Jackson, Mario Chambers, I think that's his name. Yeah. And Antonio Gates, Darren Sproles. I mean, what better way to have it? And in the first quarter, Mike Jones will score the first points of the 2010 Mega Bowl, a 5-yard touchdown. But the Chargers struck back. Phillip Rivers to Vincent Jackson. And then in the second quarter, Ron Rodgers, the Dons' new running back replacing Derek Vance, scored a 1-yard touchdown before Darren Sproles returned a 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. And I'm like, woo, okay, we got a game now. That's what I was thinking. But both teams didn't score. And a blocked field goal. And the Dons blocked the Chargers field goal to keep the score 14-all at halftime. I remember at halftime, I said, guys, we've been here before. We got to find a way to separate. We just got to keep playing Dons football. So we've been here before. We know what it takes to win. So let's go out there in the second half and show it. And in the second half, Warwick Locker threw a 5-yard touchdown to the tight end. But the Chargers went backing down. They kicked the field goal. Going into the fourth quarter, Dons had a 4-point lead. But before the fourth quarter, Dwayne White made one of the craziest catches in Mega Bowl history. Oh yeah, I remember Warwick Locker. He threw it, and I thought it was gonna get picked off. And the defender tipped it, and Locker caught it, and I was like, whoa. But it was we had a 4-point lead, and then we took the lead in the fourth quarter. And then the Chargers came back, scored with LaDainian Tomlinson. Hold on one second, y'all. All right, so it was 28-23. And it was third down and long. And I think the Chargers burned the timeout. So the conversation on the sideline is, you think we should run the ball and kind of make them burn their time, trying to get may not get the first down, but just run the ball, make them burn their timeouts, at least have one. But you know what? He said it's third and long. Let's throw the ball, and hopefully, just don't throw an interception. Whoever makes the play, make it. If not, throw it away, punt the ball, let our defense try to win it. And on third down, Warwick Locker will make the throw to Tyrone Richards that will live in Don's lore. I remember Derek Vance, he dropped back, he's looking, and then Tyrone Richards got open, and I remember he made one of the best catches. I mean, one of the best catches I've ever seen in Mega Bowl history. Stayed in bounds, caught the ball, first down. We continued to move the chains. And then later on, Mike Jones pounded out the yards. And well, you know, we're Mega Bowl champions again. And just like that, the Dons win their second Mega Bowl championship in franchise history, defeating the Chargers 28-23. And Warwick Locker, Don's quarterback, will win Mega Bowl MVP honors with 10 of 15, 304 yards, and 2 TD passes. And Coach White, once again, earned his spot in NFL history. Is becoming, in my fun segment, to become the first ever African American head coach ever to win 2 Mega Bowls. This Mega Bowl, it was just a culmination of what we have built up over the years since Coach White took over in 2003. And it was just a constant reminder of what Don's football is. It will always be. Is being in this moment, being on the biggest stage when it comes to the postseason. And when we come to the Mega Bowl, our attitude is to win. You know, our attitude is to win Mega Bowls. And fortunate enough, in the mid-late 2000s, in 05 and 09, we won 2 of them. And Coach White earned his spot as one of the great coaches the league has ever seen. And just like that, 2 Mega Bowls, 2 times Mega Bowl champions. (2010s). All right, the Dons in the 2010 season moved into their new home, the Rose Bowl Stadium, permanently. And they opened the 2010 season against the Orlando Thunder. Another banner reveal night symbolized Don's football of what it is. Yeah, we're all about championships and dominating football games, winning games, and winning championships. And on opening night against the Orlando Thunder, they beat them 34-26. All right, the opening game against the Thunder, they won 34-26. And they finished the season, 2010 season, 12-4, winning another NFC West title in Coach White's 8th year with the Dons. But in the postseason, the Super Wild Card, they were upset by the Spartans. 2011, they went 14-2, more the same. NFC West Championship, highlighted by the win over the Steelers in Week 4 on a Sunday night, to finish the season 14-2, and the 2011 NFC Divisional Round against the Giants, where they would win 35-28. But in the NFC Championship game, they would fall to the Orlando Thunder. And just like that, the Dons' championship run had come to an end. Not until Coach White coached his final season in 2012. They finished with a 10-5-1 record, with wins over the Montreal Machine and New England Patriots on a Sunday night in New England. And Coach White's final game against the Bengals in the 2012 Playoff Bowl in the Rose Bowl, winning 44-20 to end Coach White's career with a victory. Coach White, who took over in 2003 when the Dons were down and out, revived them and brought them 2 Mega Bowl World Championships, 7 division titles, 2 NFC championships, and once again mentioned 2 Mega Bowls. One of the greatest coaches ever in NFL history. Mike the LA Dons fan fun segment. And Coach White and his players and his peers will talk about him. Yeah, Coach White, great man, great personality, just always positive. He always brought positive energy to practice, to games, to gatherings, meetings. You just felt like going to every game. You just had that. He just gave you this confidence that you knew that we were gonna win the game, and he just installed that in us. No matter what happens, no matter how hard the game gets, no matter how many points we're down or how many points we're up, we're gonna find a way to win the game. He was just a tremendous man, a tremendous leader. I mean, an easy guy to talk to. I mean, just like I said, he never yelled at players, never point fingers, never got in their faces or cursed at them. He was just always honest. He was always truthful, and he always believed in you, even when you didn't believe in yourself. He always believed in you. He always believed that you can do better, and he expects us to be better, and he expects us to work. He expects us to work hard, play hard, study hard, and just find ways to win games. And not only win games, but win championships. And I think, after we won that 2012 playoff bowl against the Bengals, we realized, hey, that was it. This may be the last run. He coached 10 years, but he revived this franchise, reestablished it, and hey, it's just, Don's football is all about championships thanks to Coach White. And just for that, say, Coach, we love you, and just wished him on that great retirement. And just like that, the Coach White era had officially come to an end. 2013, the Larry Hazel era began. Yeah, Larry Hazel, never heard much about him. Heard that he was a pretty good coach. Came over from the West Virginia Spartans as a special teams coach. But we figured, let's give him a shot. And we just figured, let's give him a shot. And in the first game against Tampa, that it seemed like the promise was coming true. They beat the Buccaneers 34-10. But with new players, it was going to be growing pains. But a big win in San Antonio against the Riders on a Thursday night, 46-10, we ensured the confidence in Coach Larry Hazel. But the team finished 8-8, a far cry from what the Coach White era was. In 2014, more of the same, 8-8. But in 2015, they would have their first winning season since 2012, highlighted with the win over the Green Bay Packers 27-0 in the Rose Bowl. I mean, we played really well. And Ryan Coyle was showing promise and potential under Larry Hazel. It was, 2015 was looking promising. That game against Green Bay was giving us hope, but we finished 9-7, but failed to make the playoffs or the playoff bowl. And in 2016, things would start turning for the worse. Once again, they would finish 8-8, but highlighted with the win over the Los Angeles, or now, I should say, with the win over now with the returning Rams back in Los Angeles in the LA Coliseum. Yeah, that game was a good game. We won that game against the Rams in the Coliseum, 27-23. But like 13, 14, and 15, well, 15 they went 9-7, but like 13 and 14, once again, went 8-8, and 4 straight years in a row, no postseason. And in 2017, the Dons will have their first losing season since 2002, going 7-8-1. And then in 2018, the team started off. The team started off 3-5 before, after a loss to the Lions, Fernando Gonzalez Sr., which he never did in his 10-year ownership, pulled the plug on the Larry Hazel era. Larry Hazel was out. In come Jim Ray, interim head coach. In his first game as interim head coach against the Denver Broncos, the Dons would win 39-14. Ryan Coyle was back. But once again, the Dons will finish 8-8, and once again, no postseason. And then Jim Ray was out. In 2019, Boss, known as Fernando Gonzalez Sr., was now searching for another new head coach. In 2019, Don's owner, Fernando Gonzalez Sr., was looking for a new coach. And he would find it in 2019, a guy who was from East LA, but was offensive coordinator in Orlando. His name, Manny Reyes. Oh yeah, it was talks of Jim Caldwell at the time and some other coaches, but then Jim Floyd, as he's known to done, did the unconventional. But everyone know who Manny Reyes is. He was offensive coordinator of Orlando Thunder, 2 Mega Bowls, won it in 2011 with the Thunder against the Patriots in my fun segment. Went to another in 2015 against the Broncos, also in my fun segment. So we figure if we get Manny Reyes now, we can win. We can get back in the championship picture. And just like that, Manny Reyes, a native of East LA, grew up as a Dons fan, was now the head coach. I remember we hired Manny Reyes. I said, wow, we're going to start winning some games. But before they start winning games, he needed to find out his quarterback situation. Whether they were going to go with Ryan Coyle or Tyree Thompson. And Tyree Thompson started some games late in the 2018 season, but he played okay. But it was some promises there. Ryan Coyle, he was okay, but he kept getting hurt a lot. So knowing Manny Reyes, he'd rather work with somebody who got some durability, and he decided to make the decision that would just once again change the fortune of the franchise. And just like that, Tyree Thompson was the starter. And then Manny Reyes' first game, they would play the Pittsburgh Steelers on a Sunday night in the Rose Bowl, and they would win by 17, 37-20. Yeah, and Manny Reyes, sort of like Coach White, but he's sort of like Coach White, positive, but he's got tons of energy and enthusiasm and confidence, and he got a little arrogance, but hey, we kind of need it at the time. But he's also a coach that never point fingers or get in players' faces, yell at them. He may say some cuss words, but he never curse at the players. But he'll never get in their face or yell. But he'll say some cuss words. But he's positive. He's also honest. But the energy, the enthusiasm, the confidence, that's what we needed at the time. And the Dons would win some games going into the showdown, the Coliseum, on a Sunday night against the Rams. And that game against the Rams, against McVay in the Coliseum, the last season the Rams were playing the Coliseum as they were the home team in that building, we kicked their ass. And the Dons would beat them 44-20, before losing to the Montreal Machine and Seahawks. But let's not forget the Week 8 game against Arizona. The Dons were forced a record 9 turnovers, including all 9 interceptions from Kyler Murray. I mean, wow. 9 interceptions in one game. That's a league record in my fun segment. Those guys came out playing. And with guys like Tyree Thompson, Seth Schultz, Rich Morales, Shelton Jenkins, and Jimmy Diaz coming over from Orlando, the Dons had some pieces, along with Riddick Clayton, offensive line, and some offensive linemen that came over from the development squad and some from other teams. The Dons will finish 10-6. Another highlight game in the last game of the season against Orlando. But before we get to Orlando, let's not forget they beat the 49ers on a Monday night in the Rose Bowl, 45-23. We beat them. The NFC, they won the division that year, but we kicked their butts too. And now, the next highlight game, Manny Ray's return trip to Orlando against the Thunder. Oh, that game was crazy. I mean, Orlando, they had control of the game for the majority of the game, and I love Todd Williams. Respect him. He the one helped me get into the coaching business, but helped Manny Reyes, I should say. He helped Manny Reyes get into the coaching business, but we know that the players wanted to win this game. We haven't beaten Orlando since 2014, and just like that, a mistake late in the game by the Thunder sent it into overtime, and we knew the situation. If we won that game, we were going to be in the playoff bowl against the Titans. So we knew we had to win this game, and it went into overtime, and our kicker came through, made the clutch kick, and the Dons beat the Thunder in overtime to earn a trip to the playoff bowl against the Tennessee Titans. And in that game, Tyree Thompson put on a show, throwing 4 touchdowns and 0 picks, as the Dons shut down Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans, and Seth Schultz had 3 or 4 sacks in that game. The second-year man out of Texas A&M, Rich Morales, had a pick, and the Dons' future was bright again. After we beat the Titans in that playoff bowl, I think the Dons, they're making a comeback under this coach and this quarterback and the players that they have. I say sky's the limit. The 2020s, greatest era in Dons history. In 2020, it was optimism in Dons Nation. But before the enthusiasm and the optimism, it was some problems. First, tragedy. Kobe Bryant died in a plane crash. Yeah, that was tough, man. That was tough. I mean, Kobe meant a lot to the city of Los Angeles, meant a lot to the Laker organization, the Laker Nation fans, and winning those championships with Shaq, and then later with Pau Gasol beating the Celtics in 2010. It was just hard on the city, and it was hard on us players because most of the players on that team grew up watching Kobe, and a couple of them, well, a few of them are from LA, like Wesley Turner and Jimmy Diaz. And so it was just tough, and it was hard. And on top of that, COVID. And then the COVID hits, and the world shuts down. So now, we're figuring to ourselves, how are we going to get 2020 off the ground, start the season? Well, easy. Everybody had to get COVID shots or get tested for COVID. We had to do all this, and on top of that, we had no preseason games. So it was just training camp all the way, which cool for us. But man, it was just kind of a weird time in 2020, and a lot of chaos going on, protests, but we figured we're gonna dedicate 2020 to Kobe Bryant. So every time we break a huddle, we say Mambo on 3, just to honor Kobe. And just for that, 2020 started, first game against the Spartans. And they're going to see the first test came against the Spartans in 2020. And the Dons, with no crowd, by the way, with no crowd in the Rose Bowl, would beat the Spartans 24-16 and go up to San Francisco and win for the first time ever at Levi's Stadium, and for the first time in San Francisco since 2012. Been a decade, almost a decade. Beat them 31-26. And before we played the Cardinals, the Dons made a huge trade. The Dons traded a second. They traded one of the receivers and a second round pick for Jerome Simpson before the Cardinals game. And the Dons would win 34-21 in that game. But the bigger story, Jerome Simpson coming to the Dons from Nebraska. And he was a great addition to us. And that's what jump-started our offense. And it started in the next game on a Sunday night in Philadelphia, who had no crowd. And it started in Philadelphia, and Jerome Simpson made a big impact, scoring 2 touchdowns in that game to beat the Philadelphia Eagles 38-20. To beat the Philadelphia Eagles 38-20 on the Sunday night. And then going up to SoFi for the first time with no crowd, beat the Rams 26-17. And then we just pretty much ran through the 2020 season until we lost to Seattle. The only loss of the season. That was late in the season. 20-16. To finish the 2020 season 15-1. Manny Reyes winning Coach of the Year. Tyreek Thompson, League MVP. And a playoff game against the Green Bay Packers in the Rose Bowl. Their first playoff game since 2011. And in the divisional round, the Los Angeles Dons would beat the Packers 44-28 to advance to the NFC Championship game. But in the NFC Championship game, the Dons would fall short to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who will go on and win the Mega Bowl 2 weeks later. In 2021, more the same. But this season will be the last season in the NFC West for the Dons. They added another game. In the first game in Minnesota, the Dons will win 35-6. winning a close game against the Colts 26-23 and kind of dominating until they tied with the Spartans 20-20 in the overtime. But the Dons kept winning until they faced Green Bay. They had few players out with COVID, but they fought hard but lost to Green Bay. But on the Thanksgiving night in SoFi, the Dons would dominate. Rich Morales returned an interception for a touchdown, and they would beat the Rams on Thanksgiving night 34-21, and they would finish 2021. They would finish 2021 15-1-1 to earn the number 1 seed again in the playoffs, this time against the Montreal Machine. And against Montreal, the Dons were dominant again, beating them 51-24. But in the NFC Championship game, they would fall once again, this time to their rivals, the Los Angeles Rams. Yeah, that one was tough, man. That one was tough. I mean, knowing that we had a better team, knowing that we were dominating teams throughout the year, and for us to lose that game to the Rams, that was heartbreaking. Right, but the heartbreaking loss to the Rams did not damper or broken the Dons' spirit going into 2022. All right, in 2022, the Los Angeles Dons moved to a new division, the NFC Coastal. Joining them will be the Thunder, Spartans, and the Machine. But their first game of the season was in SoFi Stadium against the defending world champion Los Angeles Rams. Yeah, we knew we had to win that game, to get some little get back at them. Just to prove that, hey, we're not that same team that y'all beat at our house in the NFC Championship game. And in that game, the Dons would dominate the Rams, but it would come at the cost. It would come with a cost. Jerome Simpson would dislocate his elbow and was out 6 to 8 weeks. But the team kept marching on. Wins over the Kings, Bears, and going into Hartford for a Sunday night battle, they dominated the Shamrocks 42-10. And Tyree Thompson had one of his best games. But Seth Schultz would have a better game the next week going against their new NFC Coastal rival, the Orlando Thunder, where he had 5 sacks. And the Dons would dominate the Thunder 38-13. And it was more of the same the next 2 games before traveling up to Nebraska, playing the Triangles in Jerome Simpson's return. And in Jerome Simpson's return, he would have a big game, catching 2 touchdowns over 100 yards. And the Dons kept rolling until the Thanksgiving night game against the Eagles, the team that they would beat and meet in the NFC Championship. And on that Thanksgiving night, the Dons showed the Eagles who's the best in the NFC. Yeah, that was a big win, a much needed win, because we knew they were trying to get home field advantage as well. And then the next week in Mexico City, the Dons had a chance to clinch the first ever NFC Coastal Division against their former division rival, the 49ers. Oh yeah. Oh man, knowing the history with those guys, the Civil War, NorCal versus SoCal. What more do you ask? And it's in Mexico City. And just like that, the Dons would beat the Niners 38-24. And the Dons would finish the season 15-2, heading into the postseason against the Orlando Thunder. We split with them. We beat them the first time. They beat us the second time. But the third time would not be the charm for the Thunder, as the Dons would beat them 28-13, going against another showdown with the Niners. But this one was a classic for the ages. Yeah, it was a close game, hard-fought game. You know, both teams just playing hard-nosed football, and that's what you want as a coach and as players. You want competitive spirit, and you want to see who's going to survive and who's willing to go longer the distance. And the Dons leading by 3, they punt the ball when the 49er punt returner made a huge mistake. He punt the ball, punter punt the ball, and the guy was trying to fair catch it. He tried, and then he muffed it, and our guy recovered it, and we got the ball, and we won the game. And the Dons once again will advance to the NFC Championship game against the Philadelphia Eagles. And in the NFC Championship game, the Dons would not be denied, defeating the Philadelphia Eagles 44-21 to advance to their first Mega Bowl in 13 years. And that was one of the best feelings in the world. We had the crowd in the Rose Bowl celebrate. I mean, just seeing the fans in the Rose Bowl, in the crowd, and our band, and it was just a great time. Knowing that we won the NFC Championship game, and now we're on to the Mega Bowl, and in Glendale against Kansas City and Andy Reid and that crew, and all we had to do was just bring home the third Mega Bowl championship trophy. In the 2023 Mega Bowl, the Dons will face the Kansas City Chiefs. And in the 2023 Mega Bowl, the Dons will face the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Dons were looking to win their third Mega Bowl championship in franchise history. And Tyree Thompson, once again the league MVP, will put on a great performance, going 6 of 8, 210 yards and 4 touchdowns. And the first touchdown, probably one of the craziest but memorable plays ever in Dons history. Yeah, I remember center snapped the ball. Tyree kind of mishandled the snap, and he was looking for the ball, and he got it. And he was trying to throw it away. And when he tried to throw it away, Jerome Simpson just snagged the ball, and the first touchdown was there. And then at halftime, we had an 18-0 lead. 18-0. But Coach Reyes knew, with Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs on the other side, the game was not over. Oh yeah, we knew. But in the third quarter, Jimmy Diaz scored a 30-yard touchdown before the Chiefs was trying to mount a comeback. And in the fourth quarter, Jerome Simpson made another big play. Yeah, I remember Tyree Thompson threw a big pass play to Jerome Simpson. He caught it, first down, and then we scored. Shelton Jenkins scored it. And the Chiefs scored another touchdown, but it was not enough. And the LA Dons win their third Mega Bowl championship in franchise history. Manny Reyes, the second Hispanic head coach ever to win a Mega Bowl since Tom Flores with the Raiders. Fun segment. Dons winning their third Mega Bowl championship, and Tyree Thompson, 2023 Mega Bowl MVP. Seth Schultz had 3 sacks. Rich Morales had an interception. Jerome Simpson had a touchdown. And Jimmy Diaz went over 100 yards. And yes, the Dons winning that Mega Bowl symbolized that Dons football was back. But the Dons were not done yet. They were far from satisfied. And the question is, after they beat the Chiefs in that Mega Bowl, and everyone wanted to know, can the Dons do it again? And the answer was a resounding yes. Opening night in the Rose Bowl, banner night, the Dons faced off against the Orlando Thunder, their NFC Coastal rivals. And the Dons dominate them. That's on my old channel, Mike the Dons fan. And the Dons would dominate the Thunder 41-3, and they would rampage through the 2023 season until they went up, until they faced the Chargers and beat the Chargers 15-3 by 5. That was a great game on Sunday night in the Rose Bowl. Seth Schultz, by the way, who was Defensive Player of the Year in 2022, once again, Defensive Player of the Year in 2023, made the play, and I think Glenn made the play, recovered the ball, and won the game. But in West Virginia, it all came crashing down when they lost to the Spartans, their other NFC Coastal Division rival, 35-27. And things didn't get much better when they traveled. Things didn't get much better when they traveled to Kansas City to face the Chiefs. Yeah, that game, that was a hard-fought game, and we made some mistakes, crucial mistakes in that game that cost us against the Chiefs. And the Dons lost by 2, 12-10. But after the game, the players came together and decided to make one of the greatest runs in franchise history, starting in Monday night with the rematch against the Philadelphia Eagles. Philly came to town, and we knew we ain't gonna lose this game. And the Dons came out and dominated the Eagles and ran the table. But in Orlando, one of the most classic games and memorable, in one of the classic games in Dons history. The Dons were driving. The Thunder had a 27-24 lead going late in the fourth quarter. And that's when one of the legendary drives of Tyree Thompson in Dons history came through. I remember Tyree Thompson was just leading us. He had to lead us. We wasn't going to lose this game. And he just got us together and said, hey, let's drive down the field and let's score. And that's what they did. Drove down the field. And we had a couple of pass interference. And, we forced a couple of pass interference penalties against them. And then a few plays later, Siobhan Wells punched it in the end zone for a touchdown. And then later on, Sean May picked off the pass, and we won the game. And just like that, the Dons would finish the 2023 season 14-3 and entering the playoffs as the number 1 seed again against the Seattle Seahawks. And against the Seahawks in the Super Wild Card, the Dons would beat the Seahawks 51-22. The guys played well in that game. They knew it was at stake. They went out, took care of business, and got it done. The next round, the Dallas Cowboys. In the rain. And we dominated them 52-17, giving the Cowboys their first, hold on one second, y'all. 52-17, giving the Cowboys one of their worst losses in playoff franchise history, and advancing to the NFC Championship against the Los Angeles Rams, who beat the Niners in Santa Clara. And this time, the Dons would dominate the Rams 43-14 to earn their trip back to the Mega Bowl. Yeah, we knew this time around we were ready for those guys, and we beat them in the season, by the way. So we knew we took care of business, and hey, we're going back to the Mega Bowl. And in the 2024 Mega Bowl, the Dons will put on the most dominant performance ever seen in the Mega Bowl. After a triangles field goal, Jimmy Diaz ran a 47-yard touchdown, and the Dons took control the rest of the way. Oh yeah, that game, that was one of those games that, wow, these guys were really taking it serious. Because we talked about it. We talked about it in the off season after we won the 2023 Mega Bowl against the Chiefs. We talked about, especially in coming in training camp, talking about winning back to back because it haven't happened in over 20 years, since the Patriots. So we knew this was important. If we want to be if we want to be mentioned as one of the great teams in Mike's Fun segment in the NFL, we got to win back-to-back Mega Bowls. And that's what they did. Dominating the triangles 63-3. Highlighted by Jimmy Diaz. 78-yard touchdown run. The longest touchdown run ever in Mega Bowl history. Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember when he handled the ball. Jimmy Diaz saw a lane, and just like the 47-yard touchdown run, he broke that, and then he was off to the races. And then I remember when the analog froze up on Mike when he was playing, he just had to keep going. So I pushed one of the buttons to keep him going, and he kept going and scored that touchdown. And we knew it was ours. And the defense had scored as well. The backup outside linebacker had a pick six. So did Rich Morales. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, scored a touchdown. And the Dons won their second straight Mega Bowl, their fourth overall in franchise history, beating the Triangle 63-3. And Tyreek Thompson, once again, was the Mega Bowl MVP with 21 of 28, 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. The Dons put on one of the biggest performance and the most dominant performance ever seen in the Mega Bowl. And yeah, after that Mega Bowl, I'm thinking, man, this could become a potential dynasty. They just won back-to-back Mega Bowls. Tyreek Thompson, he's now establishing himself as one of the greatest. He's established himself as one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and I can see this team being a dynasty, and I cannot see this team falling off the cliff. This team could potentially win 3 in a row. Yeah, and I remember that night. We did it, won back to back, and it was the first year of the brand new Golden Mega Bowl trophy being displayed, and the first Mega Bowl on the Madden since the 06 Mega Bowl. And boy, to play like that and dominate, it was like, bring it on, man. Let's win another one. But we celebrated that one. And boy, we just said, hey, let's get the next one. The 2024 Dons, their last season ever in the... Oh, sorry. Yeah. The 2024 Dons was more the same. But this time playing their last season ever in the NFC Coastal. As they would go back to the West in 2025. They will open their night against the Minnesota Vikings. And once again, banner night. And we're playing them on the brown and gold checkerboard, the football men. And we just dominated them. And a dominant performance, 49-7 over the Vikings. And they kept dominating until a Sunday night game against the Ravens. The Dons were down 2 touchdowns before the Dons defense and Seth Schultz took control. I remember our offense was not having the best night against the Ravens, but our defense stepped up. Slick Rick Charles had an interception, and then we scored it off a turnover, and then Seth Schultz made one of the best plays of his career. Sacked Lamar Jackson, forced the fumble, recovered the fumble, and returned it back for a touchdown. And it ended up being the final score, 38-37. And they beat the Ravens. And the Dons would once again go 15-2 in 2024. Only losses were to the Commanders and Bulldogs. But they would finish the season 15-2, heading into the Super Wild Card against the Ohio/Canton Bulldogs, who made their return in 2024. Yeah, that game, the Bulldogs were back in existence after being in years in Montreal. Their last season in Ohio was 07, and they came back in 04, and it was a tight contested game in the first half. In the first half, it was a tight contested game, but the Dons, like always, made adjustments and took control. And we took control in the second half, and we beat the Bulldogs, and we advanced to the next one. And the next round was the Washington Commanders. And Jimmy Diaz put on one of the best performances in postseason history, rushing for 283 yards, a postseason record in my fun segment for rushing, and one of the greatest touchdown runs in Don's history, 90 yards. The longest in Don's history, 90 yards. Yeah, he ran 90 yards, and we just dominated the Commanders. And the Dons would beat the Commanders 54-7 before facing the Philadelphia Eagles again in the NFC Championship. And once again, they routed the Eagles 37-3 to earn their third straight trip to the Mega Bowl. And we knew after this one, after the 2025 Mega Bowl, this could be our last time together. And Jerome Simpson had a big game. Seth Schultz had a big game. Tyreek Thompson had a big game. And hey, we're off to Vegas. And in the 2025 Mega Bowl in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, the Dons will put the final touches on their three-peat and on their dynasty. Yep. Jimmy Diaz scored the first touchdown of the game, but the Bills were not backing down. But the defense of the Dons forced 5 turnovers, including 2 interceptions by Rich Morales, who would end up being the 2025 Mega Bowl MVP. But the Dons only had a 4-point lead in the halftime. Yeah, we knew that going into half. I said, guys, it's time to put our foot down. If you want to make history, we got to put our foot down and just put the Buffalo Bills away. It ain't going to be easy, but we got to find a way. And in the second half, the Dons would do just that. With the Dons kicker making a Mega Bowl record 5 field goals, the Dons would find a way to beat the Buffalo Bills, and Shavon Wells and Willie Jones will punch in the final points as the Dons would win their 3rd straight Mega Bowl over the Buffalo Bills 43-24 to complete the three-peat, the first team ever in the NFL in my fun segment to win 3 consecutive Mega Bowls. Rich Morales was the 2025 Mega Bowl MVP. Manny Reyes, the first Hispanic head coach ever to win 3 consecutive Mega Bowls. And the Dons earned their spot in pro football history. Yeah, that night, celebrating with Boss. And we just knew after that game, after we beat Buffalo, that was going to be our last time together. That was going to be our last time together. And we knew if we're going to go out together, we're going to go out as champions. And that's what we did that night. And just like that, the Dons made history. Did something that no team has ever done. Win 3 in a row. And I'm just so proud of these guys. So proud of Manny. He's a great man. Great person. Always had enthusiasm. Has always had energy. Always had confidence. Believe that we can win. Knowing we can win. Knowing we got the better team. And just man, it's just a great. He was just a great family guy, and that's what Don's family is. It's all about family. It's all about the brotherhood. It's all about being Don's, and that's what Don's football is all about. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. If we go back out there, and they want us to come back out and play, I say sign me up. I say sign me up. All right, Don's football. That is the conclusion. That is it. If you enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up. But before I do that, Don's football is all about championships. From the next coach, next players, passed on down. It's all about legacy, history, and tradition. And in 2025 and beyond, the next coach and the next players looking to carry that tradition on to the future. So we want to say adios and good luck. If you enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, feel free to subscribe, share with your family and friends, and I'll catch you on the next one. Mike the LA Dons fan, signing off. Peace. Go Dons. Good night, everybody.